So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who is Nazar Musa, CEO, PRO Partner Group. So Naz joined PRO Partner Group in late 2020, having relocated from Sydney, where he ran a private equity funded digital media company. Naz was born in Sudan and brought up in the UK, and his experience spans across the globe, and he's lived in and worked in many countries, Spain, Denmark, the USA, Caribbean, Middle East, Asia, and most recently in Australia. Now, Naz will be talking to us for 20 minutes, and I think his session is an excellent way to start today's discussions, since this is an area that most of you are very interested in, and it will be a strategic approach to setting up GCC business operations. So, Naz, welcome and take it away.
Thank you very much, Ed, and thank you very much, everybody at AD. Like Ed said, I'm the CEO of Pro Partner Group. We're a GCC-based corporate services and PRO service business based through our offices in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, in Qatar, in Muscat, and most recently in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. We've worked closely with all the British business groups in the region here in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, in Qatar specifically, and we're a British-owned firm. Obviously, there's been a lot of interest from the UK in setting up in the region post-Brexit and during this global pandemic. And we're going to talk a little bit about how companies can set up in the GCC. There's been a long-standing history from our company of relationships with British firms, and that's only grown in the last sort of 12 or 18 months. I'm going to talk quite a bit about the UAE, simply because there's been changes in legislation recently that have changed the landscape a little bit. But of course, we'll also touch on the opportunities outside of the UAE in Qatar and in Saudi Arabia and wider in the GCC. Without the support of experienced on-the-ground partners, setting up in the region can be quite a challenge. It's time-consuming. It can even be daunting. And it has taken our business many years to build relationships that benefit all of our clients, whether they be direct clients or professional services clients like lawyers who want to help their clients in turn set up in the region. Make sure this technology works. I'll move on one. There you go. So these are the kind of things that we do. Company formation, of course, is the one that is pivotal to our business and to our offering. And there are several methods by which a foreign investor can set up their business across the GCC. Or even transfer a business from one country to another, or open branches across the region as well. PRO services include visa regulations, whether they be for residents or their employees, labor, immigration cards, offshore passes if companies are operating in, say, the oil fields, and transfer of sponsorship, investor visas, family visas, etc., etc. PROs allow that process to be a far smoother operation than trying to handle it yourselves. Corporate sponsorship, we offer a local partner service as a corporate nominee partner, as opposed to an individual being your partner in the region. Historically, a number of activities in the UAE have needed 51% ownership by a local Emirati. We can act as that 51% local partner with side agreements in place to protect the shareholding of the owning company. There's a lot of reasons why that's preferential to simply an individual, and a lot of thought has to be given to Sharia law, and heaven forbid if something happens to that individual, etc., etc. That's changed a little bit, which is why I want to talk about the UAE a bit more on this session, because over the last month or two, legislative changes have brought in the opportunity for foreigners to own 100% of their business without a local partner in the UAE. So we'll talk about that. And we also offer other services, secretarial services, HR services, corporate governance, which we'll talk about as well, SPVs to do a variety of different things, whether they be onshore or through free zones, and liquidations, deregistrations, etc., etc. Company formation is the backbone of everything that we do. There are several methods by which an investor can set up their business in the UAE, and across the GCC they're relatively similar, with just subtle differences with local rules and regulations surrounding each market. The fact that we're on the ground in our offices in each one of the GCC, or not all of the GCC, but in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in Oman, and in the UAE, the fact that we're on the ground means that we have expertise and experience to help businesses set up in the right way. In the UAE, there's, like I've just said, been lots of recent developments that opens up an awful lot of opportunity for British businesses to set up in the UAE. And these developments are ongoing. Companies can be formed as LLCs, limited liability companies, as branches of foreign entities, as trade rep offices, as professional service license businesses. They can be set up within free zones, and we have a myriad of new visas that have been launched in the last 12, 18 months, including freelancer visas, the golden visa, which allows investors 5-year or 10-year residency visas alongside them, and even 12-month remote working visas to try and attract individuals to come and base themselves in Dubai while they work remotely, as the pandemic has opened up these opportunities for remote working. The main question really is, if you were to set up in the UAE, what options do you have? There are two key areas to think about. One is you could set up as a mainland company, and the other is you could set up within one of the free zones. And there are differences between the two, obviously. As a mainland company, you have direct access to the local UAE market, and you can work with government and semi-government operations. If you're in the free zone, you're not permitted to operate outside of that free zone, and even outside the free zone that you're registered in. And you can't work with governing bodies as well. If you're on the mainland, you need you needed 51% local ownership, and in a free zone, 100% ownership was allowed, with the free zone in essence acting as your sponsor. On the mainland, you are free to gain more visas, and there's no limitation on the number of visas on a mainland license, whereas in a free zone, your visa allocation is limited by the space of the office that you choose to have. So it's quite low cost initially, but as you get 2 or 3 or 4 more staff members, then you need bigger offices, and office space is a little bit more expensive there. There's a flexibility to rent your office anywhere if you have a mainland visa, whereas in the free zone, obviously you can only rent your office within the free zone as well. So there's a meaningful difference between whether you set up on the mainland or whether you set up on the free zone. Now, having said that, the legislative changes between Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and the other Emirates in the last couple of months have really opened up the question of what happens to free zones next. And the simple answer to that is I don't know the answer to that, and I don't think anybody does. When you sign up and you set your business up in a free zone, there are multi-year tax protections that will remain in place irrespective of legislative changes through a federal level in the UAE. And so that could be a benefit for continuing being based in the free zone. But as I said, nobody really knows us at the moment. The new legislation, the new changes in the law are constantly evolving, and every sort of week we get more and more new news. The most recent updates about foreign ownership are from Dubai and Abu Dhabi. They say that in Dubai, industrial and manufacturing LLCs can now be 100% owned. Commercial activities and the trading of specific goods can also be 100% foreign owned. There's a full list of some 1,000+ different activities that can be owned 100% without any real change in the requirements for share capital or paying down that share capital. In Abu Dhabi, the initial release had industrial and manufacturing, again, can be 100% foreign owned. Repair and maintenance works could be. And as you can see on the slide that I've got here, it says no trading activities are on the 100% owned list. However, since producing this deck and going online, that's now changed as well. And there are a number of trading activities that once again can be owned 100% by a foreign entity or an individual without having to have 51% owned by a local. As you can see, even in the context of this particular presentation, the whole thing is evolving, and the practical application of these changes are still being updated and amended. There's still the question is still out on labour and immigration issues, on how memorandums of association need to be adjusted and updated, etc., etc. It's moving forward and it's moving well, but at the moment there's still a lot of uncertainty around what actually happens now with this 100% foreign ownership. With that in mind, at Pro Partner Group, we set up a way to protect, firstly, our existing clients, but also anybody else that wants to come into the market with a pathway to that 100% foreign ownership. A lot of the companies now wanting to set up fall into that 100% owned activities list. And there's a lot of companies that are already established that could also fall into those lists as well. And companies in the free zones that are looking to move out of the free zone onto the mainland could also now benefit from the 100% owned structure. So as at PPG, at Pro Partner, we've devised a mechanism whereby we can move our partners and any new companies from sponsored entities straight into 100% owned LLCs, and in a way that is relatively quick, easy, cost-effective, and in line with all of the different changes that are happening on the ground here. I guess what we're finding in reality, however, is that our existing clients, who we act as the 51% shareholder of, aren't 100% sure what 100% ownership means. And the majority of them, I would say the vast majority of them, have chosen to stay with their local partners and not be the guinea pigs and not be the first company to do it, and to watch and wait and see what legislation brings in the coming months and years. As those of you who are in the region already and those of you who have done business in this region before know, relationships are key. And so staying with their local partners for these companies has become a not expensive way of maintaining good relationships, getting good contacts within the local community, and with the uncertainty around the 100% and what it actually means, the majority have chosen to remain with their local partners. Alongside company formation, we do company licensing and regulatory services. We act as an advocate for our partners. We obviously set up trade license applications for people. We acquire regulatory approvals depending on what the business activity is, whether it be in the media or in the health space or in education. We have Supreme Petroleum Council approvals with ADNOC that we can gain on behalf of our clients alongside CISPA passes, etc., etc., etc. And the ability for us to support our businesses in that way saves them money, time, years and years of experience, etc., etc. Corporate governance and secretarial services. There's more and more focus in the region and in the UAE specifically on regulation and legislation around businesses. We can help businesses set up their AGM, coordinate with directors and shareholders, etc. Economic substance regulations, the ESR assessments are a must now, as are the UBO assessments, and there's heavy fines if companies don't adhere to those new regulations. And we support our existing businesses and other businesses that want support with ESR and UBO as well. And obviously, as companies set up, they may need sort of nominee management and director services, which we can be part of as well. If you're listening to this from the UK, PRO and visa services is not something that really happens in the UAE, in the UK that often, but here it's vital. Everybody, bar the 20% of the local population, needs a visa, and the way you get that visa and how your visa is manifest differs based on if you're an employee, if you're a family, etc., etc. So we have a world-class PRO team in each one of our offices, in our Dubai office, our Muscat office, our Abu Dhabi office, in Riyadh and in Doha. And they work on behalf of all of our clients to ensure that a complex and time-consuming process normally goes through smoothly for the individuals, for the companies, and we also support them with if there's a block on labour files, if they want HR support, if they want us to help them with their payroll services, WPS, etc., etc. We're on the ground and we can support our business partners to do that. Qatar. We've been in Qatar for almost 10 years. And during that time, there was a blockade in the region, and obviously regional business between the GCC into Qatar was a real problem and was paused. We were there on the ground. We supported all of our existing partners and relationships in Doha and in Qatar, and now that blockade is open, we are seeing much more inter-GCC conversations happening, as well as from the UK into Qatar. Obviously, the World Cup next year is a really big opportunity for Qatar and for inward investment into the kingdom. There's a lot of investment coming in, and the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Q Invest is very active outbound as well as inbound. In Qatar, we can act as a corporate partner to be your 51%. We can help with the free zone, QFZ company formation. And like everything else, we do all the corporate services work, including our PRO team on the ground. There are a number of companies you could set up. Obviously, the LLCs. Foreign companies can only own 49% of an onshore company in Qatar. But once again, we act as your 51% partner, and we have side agreements that protect that shareholding on your behalf. And having an LLC really covers a broad range of activities with a few strategically important to the government notable restrictions. And recently, QFZ has opened the Qatar Free Zone, and that allows 100% foreign ownership for specific limited activities. But we ourselves, Pro Partner Group, venture partners, which is our business in Doha, are set up in QFZ as well. And you can have a branch, of course, a 100% branch of a foreign-owned company, but it must have a government-issued contract, and the branch is limited to the life of that project only and doesn't really allow you any other activities. And that project-based setup is something, once again, that we are very experienced in. We also have a concierge service that we're launching very soon on the ground, and that's for really around the World Cup. There's going to be a lot of interest of people coming in, and we want to be able to support companies, individuals, as they sort of navigate their way through setting up in the kingdom. Most recently, we have opened up our office in Saudi Arabia. Since the announcement of the 2030 plan by the kingdom, there's been a lot of changes in Saudi Arabia that have made opening a company meaningfully easier. There was also an announcement that by 2024, any regional company that wants to have business with the Saudi government has to have their regional head office based in the kingdom from 2024. Once again, like the UAE, there's a minefield of different information that's coming in and out of the kingdom. We're not 100% sure what a regional head office means. Does it mean you just have to have one of your C-suite there. Does it mean that everybody has to be there? There isn't really much clarity on that, but some companies have already set up their regional headquarters in Riyadh in preparation for that 2024 deadline of wanting to do business with the government over there. Because of all these different changes constantly happening, the fact that we are on the ground and we are a trusted support on the ground has meant our existing partners in the region who now want to open in the kingdom are working with us to do so as we speak, really. We offer PRO services, we offer ongoing corporate support, trademark services, and help really with the full setup of your company in the kingdom. As I mentioned, it's constantly evolving, and even when it comes to taxation, VAT in the kingdom is 5%, but last July that was moved to 15% overnight in order to support the efforts around the pandemic. However, it hasn't been returned back, and there is no conversation around whether it would come back. There's a corporation tax in the kingdom of 20%. Even though you can own the business 100% in the kingdom, there is a corporation tax of 20%. And that corporation tax even manifests for branches of companies that operate in jurisdictions where there isn't any tax or isn't any corporation tax. So there's a lot of on-the-ground support that's needed for setting up your business, and we're on the ground to help that. Companies can be formed as joint stock companies, as LLCs, which once again can be 100% foreign owned, with the notable restrictions around strategically important parts of our activities. And we're working very closely with Musa, which is the Ministry of Investment, to support all of our companies coming into the kingdom. And finally, of course, as I said, you can open foreign branches. So as you can see, look, there's a lot of machinations and opportunities and open doors for you in the GCC. But a lot of the time, you're going to need the support to navigate through that. We've been here supporting British businesses for many, many years, and we will continue to be here supporting British businesses for many more to come. We've got a virtual stand, and so if you've got any questions, my team and I are on that virtual stand throughout the whole day. But Ed, the team at ADD, everybody else, thank you so much for the opportunity of talking. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Naz, for your comprehensive presentation. It was wonderful. I kindly ask all attendees to please visit Naz and his team in the virtual platform. I'm sure you have lots of questions. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, and to stick to the schedule, we need to move on. So Naz, has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time.